Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Brad Krantz. Welcome to a two-part training that I'm presenting on servant leadership. I'll be doing a brief overview of the 10 characteristics of a servant leader, and I'll be focusing on how this relates to what we're doing on our 3LE team. And just to keep it this way, I've seen servant leadership modeled and talked about from Calvin Becerra all the way down to Adam and Ashley and many of us here on the team. So it feels very integral to what we're doing and how we view a leader's role here with this opportunity. My goal is to provide you an overview of what servant leadership is and its characteristics, and also how it relates and applies to your business so that you know why we employ this type of leadership style and what's involved. So first question, what is servant leadership? Well, it's been around for about 50 years. And as no surprise, though it might not be uncommon that many of us haven't heard much about it or seen it truly practiced where we've worked. And I know that sadly I've not. For most of us, the term leader and servant don't seem to mix or relate. And that's sad because, however, I think they can and do. My main point here is in order to be a servant leader, you must first have a desire to serve others. Okay? This desire then pushes or drives you to want to lead others. An obvious question here might be, how does this apply in a non-traditional business like ours? Well, glad you asked. We're not in a typical employer-employee relationship here, okay? All of us are entrepreneurs. We're independent business owners, if you will, so we need to practice a leadership model that fits this situation or our situation best. And servant leadership does this very well. One of the best features I have discovered of servant leadership is it can't be faked. You have to be authentic, and that's one of my big mantras, being authentic. In order to be an effective servant leader, there are 10 characteristics that are integral, as I mentioned. And as I just said about being authentic, you must have these habits deeply rooted in you first, okay? You can't fake it. Number one is listening. In order to be a good servant leader, you must know how to listen. And since we're not in a typical boss-employee situation, this is particularly important. If you're a boss, servant leaders are opposite. They first listen to concerns and suggestions, and they allow everyone to be involved. And after people have contributed, these leaders take time out to reflect on everything that they've heard. And then this is a way to include everyone, and it helps make people feel that their input is valuable, and it should. Asking questions is also an important part of this process. Good leaders ask good questions, and then they listen. When someone has a question, we need to listen and focus on the question being asked. My wife will tell you I need to work on that, okay? We need to learn to lead with questions. Ask them things like, what do you think? And then, what else? And then, what else? So when you've asked a question, instead of instantly trying to answer, which that's a tendency of mine and probably a lot of us, simply ask, can you please tell me more? Or please say more about that. And specific to this business, we should ask people, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? And what obstacles are you facing? Okay. Number two is empathy. And empathy, a servant leader has to be empathetic. Okay, and the key to this is what we just talked about, listening. You can't really be empathetic if you don't listen, right? You must know how to connect with the people you're leading. And you need to be able to understand what they're feeling and what they're going through and relate to them. And again, this requires listening and asking good questions. For example, how can I help you? What challenges or struggles are you facing? In contrast, or by contrast, a leader who's detached is unable to effectively lead people that he or she doesn't understand. You don't know what's going on in their life. It's also important to know that empathy differs from sympathy, and I'll just keep it short and say empathy is really being able to walk in their shoes, to be able to say, hey, I've been there, I can relate. Number three characteristic is healing, and this requires empathy for sure. What we're talking about here is really looking out for the welfare of the team, and it may involve dealing with emotional issues. Healing is a quality of being able to resolve issues and conflict. Servant leadership requires that you have healing qualities, okay? But this requires that you must first have your life or your act together in order to do so, right? You can't truly help someone if your life's a mess. You must be able to play a role in helping people solve their problems and issues as this helps them to become better. And as a leader, we're trying to empower others, and this is part of it. Number 4 is awareness. We might call this self-awareness. That's part of being disciplined. And I love the quote from Shakespeare's Hamlet that's oft quoted, "To thine own self be true." A technical definition of this would be conscious knowledge of oneself. As a leader, you have to be aware of yourself. You must also know the values and the ethics that you hold and how they're applicable in a situation. And if there's a problem, as we discussed previously, you're hopefully able to view the different aspects of it before tackling it or attempting to solve it. And you do this by being objective and providing perspective. 5th is conceptualization, and we might call this having a dream. Every servant leader must be able to conceptualize. As a leader, you got to know how to dream. You need to have a dream. If you don't, how can you inspire others? And you must be able to see the potential in a situation or an individual, and this can then be passed on to those that you're leading. Again, keep in mind, leadership is influence. If you're not influencing people, you're not leading them. And you also do this by having an open mind and the ability to conceive. It's going to help you to perceive what your followers can see as a better possibility in their future. We're kind of trying to direct people to their future. So tomorrow I'll cover the remaining 5 characteristics. Please let me know if you have any questions or need further clarification. I'm glad to help. And my prayer here for you guys is that this will help to lead you and help you develop the leader within you. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.